Alright, well, welcome back to the Phoenix Studios here. It's 92 degrees inside the garage here, and it's 108 degrees outside, and it's only 10:30 in the morning. Got an issue here with my 2002 NB Miata. It has a weird hesitation as you're driving, let's take it for a test ride and see if we can show you what it's actually doing. All right, let's take the car for a ride and see if we can show you what it's doing. It always starts up fine. Let's take it out on the road and see what happens. All right, everything's running good now. I'm going to turn the air conditioning on. And there it goes. Jerking there, right there, the jerking. It's kind of like a bucking Bronco here. Okay, well, we're back from the test drive, and unfortunately the video just didn't show you exactly what would happen, but what the car actually does is, as you're driving along, it'll like jump forward on you, almost like it loses power immediately, and it's almost like you're hitting the brakes and you're driving, and it'll just hesitate on you. That jerking forward motion, I did have this happen to me in the car when I was low on gas, and if I'm making like a sweeping left turn, the car would hesitate, and what I attributed that to was fuel not getting into the fuel pump. So one of my first thoughts is, well, let's try and change the fuel pump. Well, I changed the fuel pump, and this is a picture of the fuel pump I pulled out. And if you notice on that picture, there's no filter on the end of the fuel pump. So the shop that put that in my car, and this was back in 2016, never put the end of the filter on. And if you go and buy a fuel pump, it'll tell you void warranty if you don't have that filter on the fuel pump. Anyway, I changed the fuel filter and then I replaced the fuel replace the fuel pump, then replace the fuel filter after that, and the cam positioning filter. And I had my Miata mechanic, Kurt Green, of Green Automotive here in the Phoenix area, who's the best Miata mechanic that there is in the valley. We figured maybe it was fixed by maybe the cam positioning sensor or the fuel filter. Well, it ran for like 3 weeks and I had absolutely no problems whatsoever. Then I had to take my wife's car and have her drive Little Red here to work. And as she was driving down the road, boom, it came back. And the only good part about the whole thing was it did throw a code. And the code it threw was a P0506, which is a code for having a low idle. And the fix for that is the idle air control valve. And that's what we're going to try and replace right now. The idle air control valve is located on the throttle body, and it's actually underneath it here. And before I changed it, or before I ordered the part, I did some research. And I found that some people said, well, if you clean the idle air control valve, maybe that'll work. So I went out and got a can of throttle body cleaner. I cleaned the throttle body, I took it off, I cleaned the throttle body, I took the idle air control valve off and cleaned that, and that didn't do any good. What's triggering it right now is as soon as I turn the air conditioning on, the RPMs drop on the engine and it just immediately jerks like a bucking Bronco. So anyway, that's what we're going to do today, and we're going to fix it. We'll keep our fingers crossed. So let's get into it, and let's change the idle air control valve. All right, the first thing we're going to do to make it easy to get in here is remove the air hose here. So there's just a couple of screw clamps that hold it together. This one to the throttle body, and then this one over here to the air box where the air filter is. And we just kind of lift that out of the way now. Now we're going to go out to the throttle body here. Now removing the throttle body is not really that hard. There's these two nuts right here that you take off, and there's two bolts. There's one here and there's one underneath here.
There's two water hoses that come from the radiator. There's this one here and there's this one here. I'm actually going to try and remove the idle air control valve without taking those off. I took them off when I cleaned the throttle body, but I think I can just flip it up underneath there. And then there's just two electrical connections that I'm going to make. One is down here to the idle air control valve, and this one over here, which is throttle body position sensor right there. So those are the ones that we need to take off. So let's get those taken off and start removing the nuts and bolts. All right, let's start taking the throttle body off. First thing we're going to do is remove these connectors. And there's just little clips here that you just push on and you remove those. Now we're going to remove the two nuts on the top here. And this is just a 12 millimeter. And let's remove the two bolts. And this one here on the left side is a longer one than we're going to see on the right side, so just remember that. This is a shorter bolt. And now we just pull the throttle body off. Let's take the cable off here and then pull this back. And this is the idle air control valve. I'm just going to kind of flip that sideways there and take a screwdriver and take the screws out here. This is held on by two screws. Alright, and this is the idle air control valve. Now I am going to put the new gasket on, so I'm removing the old gasket. So now let's put the new screws in and the gasket here and screw it in. Now let's put the throttle line back on and put the throttle body on the manifold. And we'll put our two nuts on here. Now the torque specs for the nuts are, I believe, like 10 to 14 inch-pounds. My torque wrench doesn't go that low. Again, remembering the long bolt goes on the left side and the short bolt goes on the right side. Alright, that's it. I'll make sure the cable's there. Okay. Put our connectors back on. Take our air tube, reconnect that. Alright, and that's it. That's all there is to changing the idle air control valve. So we'll take it for a test ride and see what it does. Alright, here comes a moment of truth. AC is going on. Oh, and it's still doing it. So you saw from the after ride that the idle air control valve did not fix the issue. I'm still a bucking Bronco. And one of the things that I thought after I came back was my mechanic Kurt told me to do the base idle adjust. And what that's going to do is, what we're going to do is we're going to actually take the computer out of it. We're going to jumper two pins over on the diagnostic box. It's over on the left hand side of the car. And we're going to jumper two pins together. And that takes the computer out from running the idle adjustment. And then there's a set screw right here on the throttle body that we adjust. And we're going to get that down to about 8,500 to 900 RPMs. So let's go ahead and adjust that and see if that does anything. All right, now this is the little diagnostic box, and on It seems that 2001, maybe 2000, I know for sure 2002, there was no schematic pinouts were. So we just open up this box here, and here are the pinouts here. And I found a chart for a 2003 diagnostic, and we're going to ground this pin right here, which is a ground, and this pin right here, which is the 10, and it's spelled TEN, and it stands for test engine. And here's a picture of the of what that looks like. So while the motor's running, we're just going to take a paper clip and we're going to put it between the 10 and the ground, lock it in, and then we're going to make an adjustment on the throttle body. And that adjustment is made by this little set screw right here, and you loosen the nut, and then you take an Allen wrench, and then you can adjust that screw there. And you're going to adjust that screw so that the inside of the tack sounds like it's about 85 to 900 RPMs. And that's what I did. All right, once you make the adjustment on the throttle body set screw, you remove the jumper here, and the computer then takes over with the new base idle speed. So that's how you adjust that. So after the base idle speed adjustment, took it for a test ride. The car's running fine now. So I don't know whether maybe if that idle air control valve was no good. Was it good? Was that all it needed? Was that an adjustment? I don't know. All I know is it's running right now. Hopefully it'll stay running. And if not, then I take it to my mechanic and I'll see what Kurt can figure out with it.